So I just finished ReLIFE, and man, it had an amazing ending. That was a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 ending. I cried. It honestly might have been one of the first times in the entire series that I did. And I can see why the entire series has a really high score. It's like an 8.67. So something pretty high up there. And yeah, but personally, I would never go on this journey again. In fact, I don't even think the journey to begin with was worth it. It took me almost 5 months to finish this. And not because I'm a slow reader, I was reading every day. I just had to stop at some points just because I just felt what I was reading was just so pointless. Like, aimless maybe is a very, a better description of that. But the overarching plot for the series never pushed you forward. Like, I started reading this series because the premise was great, right? We have a 27, 28-year-old guy who is stuck in a rut in his life, and he gets opportunity to, grow again and potentially get better. And by doing that, you're introduced that you get to go back to high school. Who hasn't thought about going back to high school and reliving life now that they're older and can do things better? And I mean, it's honestly a trope that I think is extremely popular. Like, look at Persona. Those games are just getting more and more popular. Persona, before you got the entire, school sim, wasn't that big. Persona 1 and 2, but Persona 3, 4, and 5, and it's especially with 5 now, it's a global phenomenon. Like, their spin-off games are doing amazing as a result. Look at YA fantasy. It's extremely popular, not just for young adults. Everybody's picking it up, So, having a series with the premise that you get to go back to high school and relive life, essentially. You're just not going back in time in ReLIFE. You just go to a different high school and you get to be that age again and you get to experience high school memories again. I think that was a really great premise, and it's what drew me in. And I started with the anime, and the anime was pretty solid. It was an 8 out of 10. And then years later, now me and my friends got together and we made a manga club, and this was our second thing we're reading, so I started reading again. And I don't know, I just couldn't do it. There's just so many things for me that just ruined my enjoyment of it. And I'm probably going to be a little hyperbolic explaining, what I didn't like, but that's just generally how I felt. Let's look at the protagonist. He's supposed to be failed out of society and neat, somebody with flaws that's going to go through the story and, recover from them. But the thing is, his weakness, his flaw is that he cares too much. That is right. Our protagonist, his flaw is that he cares too much. And because he cares too much, he felt like he interfered where he shouldn't have because he cared too much. And as a result of those actions, it affected him to the point where he almost stalled in life. So, protagonist cares too much. Let's look at our heroine. Our heroine's weakness is she is so competent, diligent, hardworking that she doesn't need anybody. And because she never really needed anybody, because earlier on she was moving around, whatever, her emotions are pretty much blocked off. And, it's not, I'm not trying to be insulting or anything, but she's almost comes across as like autistic. But basically her emotions are cut off, and it takes everything very analytical. Again, her weakness stems from being so competent. So we have these are our two protagonists, and I don't know, I just didn't find it compelling. Like, having your protagonist who was supposed to go live this high school experience, but instead he's just helping all the other students around and then helping her and teaching everybody. It doesn't seem like he really belonged there, but I guess it's supposed to show you that he did when they end up helping him later. I don't know, man. It just felt so forced. Like, I don't even understand why you're going to be doing this high school plot when every single chapter there's a gag where the main character goes, I'm an old man, I'm a middle-aged man, I better not do that, I might be creepy, I'm an old man. Like, I almost until the very end of the series, I am constantly being bombarded. I'm an old man, I'm middle-aged, and for a 28-year-old guy. Like, if you're going to sit there and be so insecure about writing this story, about putting your 28-year-old character or whatever as a 17, 18-year-old in high school, then don't write that story. And the worst part is, you're not even getting, like, the high school experience, you're getting his first of all, he has a support who literally stalks him. He knows everything about his life previously because he got stalked. Then he follows him around everywhere. He listens on every single call. Has everything because he has like access to his cell phone. And it's just so annoying. Like, you're basically support character. And the thing is, you slowly find out more and more of the class end up being adults. So you have just a bunch of adults pretending to be kids in a classroom, and they're pretty much the forefront of the story. It's... oh my god, I'm just so frustrated with it. It's... I don't know, like 30-40% are the supports. And so there's two of them in the class, and then the main character ends up liking, and he's like, oh no, it's a high school girl, I'm an old man. Well, luckily for him, conveniently, it turns out that she is also, an adult in a kid's body going through her own, what's that called, ReLIFE experiment. And the supports are for, trying to push them together, and they have so much influence over the story. Like, you get out into potentially an emotional moment, and then it would cut into the supports talking about it because they eavesdropped in on it. Dude, to me, it just took me out of every single moment. And then you have long pages of just them writing reports on it. So you experience a scene. Then you have a whole bunch of pages of the supports writing about that scene. And honestly, none of the characters were really compelling to me. The supports weren't compelling. They were just know-it-alls who just talk down to people their own age because I guess they're functioning members of society, even though they spend all their time as children. And the thing is, the only character that was really well done, in my opinion, that was actually compelling, and I felt like I'd rather follow her story, is Karyu, whatever, Rina. She is the perfect example of a well-written teenage girl character. She has teenage girl problems, she resolves them like a teenage girl, and I love following her arc. She was the best part of it. But everybody else, man, it was either just some sort of gag, like her, the boyfriend she ends up being with, Oga. It's he has a gag where he basically can't even jog because he's so physically unfit. And he's super dense. And it's like every character has to be super dense for any of the plot to happen, and I don't know. I just had a hard time going through the story. Like I said, I would have dropped it so many times if it wasn't for being part of this manga club that me and my friends are doing. The thing is, this was supposed to be a 1-month read, and every single one of us, I couldn't finish it. The only reason I even am finishing it now is because we had another friend join, finished it in 2 or 3 days, and I'm like, well, that looks bad on us. So I went ahead and finished it up. But man, the supports were super annoying, and they took up way too much screen time, repeating events or influencing the story. This was supposed to be them growing, and I guess they took their job seriously. They were supports. They directed it, but that's not enjoyable for me at all. And as time went on, we got more of the love interest, Hashiro. Is that her name? I sat there and I read it, and I still can't even get their names right. Hashiron. She started taking up more screen time, and she obviously, being emotionally incapable for a big chunk of the story. Then you have to sit there and figure out basic emotions with her, and you have to read about that. It just dragged on and just repeated. Like, I'm telling you, there's scenes where Rina had a lot of trouble, and you have her solving her problems in her own way. Then you have her friends trying to help her. Then you have, the main character, Kaizuki, whatever. He's, trying to solve it. Then you have the supports going back, and you just have entire large sections of everybody just stalking each other, talking about the same problem, and there's actually no solution. So it just kept going on and on and on in circles. I hated that the supports were involved so much. I hated how... I don't know, I guess this wasn't for me. And I'm just thinking, a majority of the story started revolving around he knows that his memories are going to disappear. I feel like, why would you even tell the subjects that their memories are going to disappear if this is going to end up happening? I don't know. I didn't like it, and I'm going to get hate for that. It's my majority. It's the ranked number in top 50 for my anime list, so it's the hate will come for my opinion, but it just really wasn't for me. I think what's it called, Steins Gate and Your Name did it better, because they have similar endings, and I think leading up to those endings it was better. And it may be just me, because this is the funny thing is, this didn't even start off as a romance story, you know. For the majority of it, it's about being a real life and doing better, and I felt like somehow along the way the romance got tied to being successful at putting yourself back what's it called, in a good place. Like, if he succeeds with his romance with Hashira, what's it called, then Kazuki will do better in his life. It just ended up being so bad. I don't know, just corny. The thing is, the story, I don't say this over and over, the story isn't bad. It is mediocre. I was feeling nothing through most of it, and I think that's my biggest issue, is I don't think it was bad. I think the art is well, the character designs are well, I think the premise is good, but it was just so mediocre. It is beyond mediocre. The ending is the best part of it. And the ending is the best part is because, I mean, it reminds me of Steins Gate. It reminds me of Your Name. It's these, honestly, for me, better romance stories, because there are more to the characters than their romance. And I think the protagonist was just way too competent, and I think the heroine was way too incompetent. Like, your flaw is that you care too much, man. So he just became in there and quickly started solving everyone's problems. You know, and anytime action was supposed to happen, the sports made it happen. And I just didn't like that loop. And that loop kept happening over and over and over and over and over again. So that's just how I feel about it. You know, I know it's probably going to be an unpopular opinion. But man, like, let me tell you, after I finish recording this, I'm going to go complain to my one friend who did finish. And then I'm... So this is, that's my opinion of ReLIFE. I don't recommend it to anybody. I don't think I'd ever do that journey again. Like I said, I don't even think it's worth a read. I'd rather read Attack on Titan again, which is something I'm not going to reread, and go through this. At least I enjoyed Attack on Titan until the very end. This I had to struggle, and then I enjoyed the end. But it just, I don't know. Well, thank you for listening. That's how I feel about ReLIFE. I'm not going to be making any more videos about this, so this is a one-off. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.